Come on, come on.
Hi, everybody. This is Kelsey here at Kenio, and I'm joined by Liz and Adrian.
Hi.
And we're here today to talk to you about visual design trends and learning for 2018 and beyond. Just to show you around the navigation of our webinar tool, if you look on the right-hand side, you can start chatting. I can see some people are already talking away. We've got quite a few people. People are saying where they're from. Please go ahead and say that. I usually would be like, hey,
Nice, yeah.
I was just joking with them before, going, you know, I usually try to like come up with some sort of conversational tool to get people talking.
No, that's good.
And you guys are already saying where you're from.
Great.
So.
Anybody from Yorkshire out there?
We've got some Germany,
Oh,
South
wow.
Africa, sunny Bristol.
Wow.
Sunny Bristol? Really?
Fun, we don't know.
We've got Oxfordshire, Stirling, Chicago, Cincinnati, Ohio, Yorkshire, quite a few Yorkshires.
Yeah.
Come on.
Illinois and Leeds.
Let's keep it real.
So I will warn you guys today that this is the most registrations that we've had. So I'm the only person manning the chat for the most part. And bear with me if I'm a little bit slow getting to your questions or comments. We will definitely be looking at them as, hey, I see do I see a Missouri in there? I'm from Missouri.
Hey, come on.
Now in sunny Brighton, UK. So yeah, just bear with us while we go through this. We have quite a few people.
And I suppose,
as you can see by the chat.
I suppose any questions we can't answer during the conversation, we'll get back to them.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, fire away with your questions. Keep engaged in the chat. I will turn this over to Liz and Adrian now, though.
Great, thanks, Kelsey. So we're just going to quickly start by introducing ourselves.
Hello there. Oh, I'll go first, Liz. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. I'm Adrian Day. I am the Global Creative Director here at Kenio. So I'll be talking you through some of the trends that we've got on show today.
Yep, and I'm Liz Smith. I'm the lead solutions designer. So I work with our bid and sales teams about new opportunities that we've got coming up and trying to get kind of innovative and new ideas into everything that we do. So I work quite closely with Adrian on thinking about the importance of all types of design. But today we're going to be talking about visual design specifically. So we wanted to start, before we go into some of the key trends that we're going to look at, we wanted to start by thinking about why visual design is so important. And I think it's really a kind of a key thing that we've been thinking about is that it should be adding to usability rather than, you know, taking anything away from it. So some of the key ways that visual design can be really helpful in e-learning or online learning is to create focal points for the learner, demonstrate the structure of a course, so you know how topics and things break down, how your eye moves across the page. All of those things are kind of helped by the layout, and the visual design enforces that. How you navigate through courses, so not just through menus and so on, but typically through pages, whether that be scrolling or screen-based. All of those things should be indicated to you by the visuals. And yeah, as we were saying, the kind of readability of the course. I think some studies have shown that people kind of read across screens in sort of S shape, the way that they scan the screen. So we've been thinking about how that relates to some of the visual principles that we'll be looking at. Yeah, but the key thing is that the usability of the course should be helped by the visual design. We don't want style over substance.
We certainly don't, Liz. No, so we've put together, I suppose, a top 20 of visual design principles. Let's say a lot of these, they aren't anything new. They're out there. You can obviously read up any more information about these things, but obviously some of the real important things are colour and making sure you develop a strong palette. Make sure there's really nice, you've developed a nice composition, and an underlying grid principle. Obviously, a lot of the stuff we'll talk about comes from a print or a photographic background, and one of the main principles around print work is creating that grid, that structure, which will then help in composition. So there we go with that. So
yeah, so then the top 5 that we're going to be thinking about today, we've picked out 5. We did a bit of research into what people are saying out there are going to be the big trends this year. So now we've moved into 2018, and these are 5 that we think are definitely going to have impact on learning and in the digital atmosphere. So we've got 5 different ones that we're going to look at: bold colours, double exposure, movement and transitions, bespoke illustration, and intersecting blocks. And for each of those, as we go through, we've followed a fairly similar structure for each one. So we'll be having an overview, looking at some key examples from print or the web, also examples from Kineo, things that we've produced, pitfalls to avoid. So I think with all of these things, there are certain circumstances to avoid using them or overusing them. So we'll look at some of those for you as well. And then also some key inspirations. And hopefully we've shared some examples with you, but hopefully that will spur you on to go out and look at more things that are out there on the web. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing today.
So let's get into the first one, bold colours. As you can see here, we're using bold colours within our brand. It's one of the main things we really thought about when we were relaunching the brand, was to try and develop a bit more of a sophisticated and bolder looking palette. And obviously here you can see that we've started to use them colours ourselves. So the first example we've got here is Spotify. I think this was developed probably about latter end of 2016. They started to redevelop their brand. So the first image when we showed you there, that was I think 2016. This is one that's probably more relevant now in 2018, and it uses this idea of you know, duotone and duotone sort of gradients to help, I suppose, give the image something new, make it look a little bit more modern.
Yeah, you know. And some of these examples, the Spotify examples, I really like this one, I think, especially with if you think of the bold colours that have been used, kind of pink and an orange and a purple, and in your mind you think, no, that won't work, that's just going to look a mess when you put them all together. But the way they kept the blocks really quite simple and overlaid, I think you can see that you can use kind of any colour combination, really, can't you? It's just about how you do that. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, some of these colours as well are really taken from when I first started my career in the 80s. It certainly had this palette around then, you know, probably came out of the idea of postmodern architecture. So you had people like Ettore Sottsass, who used to design things for Memphis, and he used a lot of these bold colours when he was creating, you know, furniture and developing architecture. So as you can see here on Spotify, they've developed a range of colours, a real varied palette. They've used quite a lot of different sort of techniques. So they have some here that's got duotone over the top of images, then with gradients in the background, and then the use of some negative space with the pictures coming through the numbers and that there.
So, Adrian, do you want to explain a little bit more about duotone and what that means as a principle?
Certainly do, Liz. Great. Thank you very much.
Thought you know.
No, as I said before, duotone, as with other things we're going to be talking about, comes from the idea of the print. It comes from a print background. So it's the idea of creating two colours, monochromatic colours, and use them over an image. So if you look in things like Photoshop, there's a duotone filter there. You can have a little play with that. You can set up your colours and see that how it affects grayscale images.
Okay, great. So we've just got a little overview here of all the things that we've talked about. So I think we've mentioned most of these, just about the importance of bold colours, how it really makes things stand out. You can use it for those gradients and backgrounds, thinking about the colour of transitions, and also exploring using those colours over 3D images.
Yeah.
We can talk about
yeah, definitely. I mean, we use, especially taking the gradient colours from the duotone and using them as background. You'll often see that in a lot of technical data sort of diagrams, so on app designs, you know, things that are created for your Adidas, your Nikes, for running apps. So I think we've got some examples that we'll go through. So this is something we created here for Adidas. As you can see, it's using that aspect of really bold neon style colours. Really gives it that sort of modern sort of image. I think at the time when we were doing these sort of things, this is when things like Blade Runner.
Yeah, I think 2017 neon was kind of quite a big thing, wasn't it? And that was included in a lot of things. We might be moving away from that now. But definitely, that kind of neon feel mixed up with the kind of bold colours does give that impression.
And we took that and then used that over the images that you can see here. So we took some of the colours we'd used in there and basically brought it into the design.
Yeah, and then within these ones, we've just shown a few different variations in terms of either just using the bold colours, or particularly this Centrica example in the top left there uses that 3D shape. So you can use the same colour overlaid, but onto a 3D image.
So it's using that idea of having, rather than developing a highly technical 3D model that's fully got all the materials and textures on there, that you're just using the clay model and just colorizing that, which, you know, is something that will continue to be big through the next year. And then here you can see some examples of using some monotone images where we just have a single color going across a black and white image, and then we've got some duotones and some really vibrant flat colors that have also got that element of bold in terms of some of the typography that's been used there, which goes alongside that.
Yeah, great. Okay, so then I think obviously that they're all really good and powerful images that we've created, but we wanted to explore some of the pitfalls as well, and things to avoid doing that could end up having not such a great effect.
Well, especially as you know, in our arena of that thing of creating things that have to be accessible. You know, this is where sometimes some of these design techniques fall flat. You know, so you have to figure ways of getting around those. So you really have to think about the contrast between the color and the font being used, and the color of that font over the top. So obviously great to use on things that don't have any accessibility. I mean, you can just go wild, really. Obviously think about how you use them. Don't always overuse them. You know, you use colors in a way to emphasize certain things. So, you know, you don't want to lose that hierarchy that you'll set up in terms of using of color for fonts and buttons. And
the
things
consistency
like
in that as well, of making sure that if you do use those bold colors, you use them in the same way each time, because that, again, that's giving an indication to the user of how to use the course.
Yeah. And one of the other points here is, with using things like duotones and things like that, you're not going to use it on every image. A lot of these that we show you, you know, are really powerful, bold imagery that tends to be used in campaigns and print campaigns, or as headline headers on websites. So when it comes to technical data, you probably refrain on, you know, putting the duotone over a photographic image if it needs to be realistic. Obviously, it goes without saying.
Yeah, and I think just on that point, it's about making sure that you're using it at the right places, because with the work that we do, and you know, if people are returning back to digital learning a lot, you don't want to kind of overload them with too much kind of over sensory experience, isn't it?
And I think that's it. You know, the last point really emphasizes that it is a stylistic effect after all. So, you know, be careful how you do use that, but enjoy and play with it.
So we've just got a few more kind of inspirations towards the end of this section on the bold colours. So we're just looking at how it's been used. As Adrian mentioned, it's in a lot of app design, particularly kind of the fitness brands tend to use this quite a lot. Photography, website design, web banners. And then we've also got some kind of poster designs here, kind of film posters, and kind of.
And just how they've used this. I mean, even on the previous slide, Liz. Sorry. You can see here they've used that color. So they've used green, and it's gone across the object that's against the background. It makes it look modern, as much as that is a bowl of peas. It does look slightly different. And when I looked at this, the people that had done this app design, that's how they photographed everything. They'd got it to a degree of lighting it against a green background. They'd chosen things especially to go against those colors. And you'll see there, like they've made things look strange. You know, so they've got a chameleon or a flying lizard there. You know, and that's what it's about. I think this next year is that element of creating things that are quirky, going into the realms of fantasy in some ways, surrealistic. Yeah, so you've got that really bold color there against that, you know, nice background, the big bold typography, and it blends its way through, as you can see there, into the photographic element as well.
Yeah, and some of these examples that we're showing you combine a few of the effects that we're going to be talking about today. You know, they haven't just picked one. So, for example, this poster design on the left-hand side with the lady's face on, it also uses the duotone, but also uses the double exposure, which is what we're going to be talking about next. So it's almost like it was set up perfectly for us.
I don't know how you do it for the money, Liz. I really don't.
Okay, so double exposure. Adrian, do you want to explain what that is, basically?
Yeah, so obviously there again, it comes from that aspect of photography. So the aspect of double exposing a single image. So in this case, what they've got here is they've used an image of a person. You tend to find a lot of them are from of people, you know.
Yeah, a lot of portraits that we
found. A lot of portraits, sort of, you know, head and shoulders shots that basically are being used then to depict a story. So you can see here, it's got it could either be the internal worries or workings of this guy who works at Morgan Stanley, who might be thinking about distribution, to then this site, almost like a Wix site, this one that says Jacob, you know. So they basically developed a free site using these double exposure sets of photography, which, you know, if you're a graphic artist, you've probably seen. And there it's got the city running through that person there. Yeah,
I like them because they kind of create more of a story, don't they? In terms of just a simple photographic image, they give you something behind that as well that builds up that context.
And there again, it's large scale images. You know, you start getting these small, you lose things. So
it has to be really quite big and bold to be able to have that internal picture as well.
So let's have a look at some of the. Oh well, we've talked about.
I think we've pretty much talked about that.
Yeah, we talked about some of those. So they are mainly used, like say, on covers and headlines. So this is something we developed here at Kinyo for Levi's. Basically, you could imagine this girl is a shop assistant, and this is the interior of her shop.
Yeah, so it's all about kind of the course is all about kind of the working of the store and the salespeople that work there. So it's stylists, they call them, and kind of the role that they take for Levi's. So it really tries to get that across through those people, as well as kind of representing the kind of people that would work in those stores. Then inside you've got, you know, you're representing the store itself. So some shelving, mannequins, things like that. And it just gets, I think you get it's got that nice kind of feel to it, hasn't it?
Definitely fits in with the brand of Levi's, doesn't it? These could be Levi models, and they probably are.
So what about things to avoid with double exposure? What can be kind of traps to get into?
I think double exposure, like with any of these techniques, they don't cover up anything that isn't good in the first place. So whether that's a 3D image, whether that's a photographic image, you know, so it's not going to cover up any mistakes. In fact, it might even emphasize them in some ways. So there again, probably best used on larger images. Certainly banners and cover images, as we've said before, doesn't work on anything that's too detailed, but obviously has to be smaller in size. And certainly, like we said before, it's not going to cover things up. So blurred images, unless you really want that effect, which can look great, you know, really make sure the images are choice and really sharp, and try don't overuse so color combinations. I mean, this idea of double exposure this year is probably it's blending in with the duotone aspect. So that's what I mean behind that.
So you don't want to have like 7 color combinations. You're going to stick to your kind of 2 key ones, and
you'll generally pull that color out into your graphics, you know. So if you use a red and a blue, you're going to use one of those colors within the rest of the design.
That's going to kind of carry through everything. And we've also got a link in there, Kelsey, if that's okay to share.
On it.
Perfect, thank you. So if some of you guys want to use that helps you to apply those images via CSS. Okay, and then we've got some more inspiration. Again, it's kind of, because these are big trends that you're seeing a lot now, they're all around, and poster design, again, is something that's key in that kind of Batman example, but then also throughout kind of, we've got a book cover there, some art, so it's coming through all different ways. The fox is interesting because that's one that kind of doesn't use the the portrait shape. You know, they've
Yeah,
gone more
no.
of an for the animal and the whole body, and kind of creating the image
And
within
it really is hard to find
Yeah.
many that don't use a human being.
person,
You know, I mean, anybody who's a graphic artist will know that with the poster design, certainly had that resurgence in the last few years, well, quite a few years, with the guy Ollie Moss, who did a lot of the Star Wars sort of posters, and you see a lot of these on OMG posters, which I don't know if we've got a link, but we can certainly put that up there. If you look at omgposters.com, you'll find a load of great sort of reference materials on there.
Okay, so that's the second one in terms of double exposure. Hopefully this is all making sense. Feel free to pass any questions through to Kelsey in the chat if anything's come up. We're going to move on to look at some movement and transitions now. So we're going to be moving away from static imagery and looking a bit about how things kind of animate. So I'm going to be launching up some different examples as well.
Web.
So let's see how that goes.
Yeah.
They might have some sound with them, so if that
You
happens,
might want to turn it down.
Yeah,
on this
I'll let the sound play out, and then
Yeah.
we'll speak afterwards. Okay, so you've just got some nice.
And this is, I think, by a company called Durock.
Yeah, that's right. So it's just loading now.
Here we go. You're right, Liz.
Yeah.
Sorry, we just had a quick dance there for a couple of minutes. But as you can see, you know, this is continuing the rest of the talk in terms of this also uses very bright, bold colours and imagery.
Yeah.
And the big thing, you know, I think we often talk about in the graphics department here is the use of sound. I think that is a big differentiator when it comes to animation. And
and it can be all sorts of things, can't it? Music, sound effects. It doesn't necessarily have to be a talking track. Sometimes, obviously, narration can be tricky with translation and so on. So, anything that kind of helps to build that atmosphere can really help.
Yeah, definitely. And quirkiness, you know, I think, you know, looking at that, you know, I really took note of it. I was wondering, where's that sound coming from and why? Yeah. You know, and it's quite engaging. And I think audio will be the big thing over the year.
Yeah. Okay. So, I think the other thing we wanted to talk about in terms of movement and transitions is kind of scroll-based animations.
Yeah. So these are ones that are could be triggered certainly by the mouse. There's been out for a few years, but there's still, you know, within our industry, I don't think they're as used as much as they probably could be. You know, especially getting over some technical style information. This is it's a beautiful example, you know, of creating this level of tweening in between pieces of information, and certainly on a menu system, you know, it's really nice, really nice.
For exploring the car itself, but using those kind of rotations.
Yeah, so you know, it's just, yeah, it is about creating. I think what got lost over the years really was this aspect of when we moved over from flash based, that we lost a lot of that element of animation, which over the last few years has been gaining more ground. And I think really this year is the year for movement, even physically it is. So we're going to show you some other examples that we liked, that we collect over the year.
And this again kind of relates to something that's coming up a bit more later on, which is about the bespoke illustrations, isn't it? So again, an overlap of those trends together.
And with this, when you look at this, what animates is not what you think is going to animate, which is, I think, is quite nice. So, you know, it's very subtle. It doesn't have to be always relatively in your face. You know, the web is very good at creating these different ways of thinking about how animation's being used. There again, you know, nice bold, you know, black and the white. You know, it is really nice.
Okay. I'll go back.
So scroll-based animations, it's worth looking at, you know, some like what Apple have designed over the years. You know, it's a really good way of getting some technical information across. Obviously, the other big popular thing on the web is the use of cinemagraphs, which are quite nice. I don't know if we've got any example of those, but it's using some still and animated imagery. So it might have a movie within a still graphic. So you might have, say, like an image of a glass on a table, and somebody might be just moving the glass ever so slightly.
Yeah,
so it's
they're
really
subtle,
subtle.
aren't they?
But it's about, you know, getting away from just having a lot of still graphics on a page and creating some level of interest. Obviously, it's only worth doing that, which I'll talk about in the pitfalls.
I was just about to say, yeah, you don't want to do it too much. You don't want to annoy people.
I won't. I try not to.
But just before the pitfalls, we've got a few examples of video courses where we've used this one. So I'm just going to go into this one.
So with this one as well, use the element of one of the other trends that probably we aren't talking about today, is this split design. So you'll see in the layout once we get there around how that's being used within this course. It's got a really nice sense of movement, and obviously this is, once we go in there, it's generally can be mouse based, or, you know, and here we've got some button interactions at the beginning.
Well, I'm going to go through some of this inspiration to
that's really nice.
Comes together, because when you've got
so, you know, it's about movement. It's not all just about parallax here. We do large background videos. On here we've got like this mood board that we've created, that if Liz clicks on one, you'll see. So this then uses that element of split design, which is still going to be quite big this year. You might want to go to, I think, try one of the journey.
The car.
So you'll see blocks sliding up and down, hopefully, in this one.
Sorry.
A bit trigger happy there, Liz, aren't you? You know, so you've got this element of timed imagery in the background as well, that with little incidental, I don't know if you saw that there, but there was a little sparkle on the diamond, you know, little things like that, which, you know, are quite nice. You've got the text animating in, so it's not just about the imagery, it's about getting things moving. We've used incidental blocks on imagery that use video, you know, but you've got this. And it might be it won't come through as smoothly as it is in real life over this webinar, but it's such a nice way of showing content, basically. You're always revealing something new than having something that's a relatively static JPEG, you know. Should we have a look at the next one, which is really, really subtle. It's something we did for a company called Weller, and you have to excuse, it does take a little bit of time to technically, but, you know, Liz is great. No, I was just going to say that, Liz, before you rudely interrupt. Yeah, joking. But this is really subtle, you know, and it works really well. You know, like I say, you don't have to go crazy, but I think people, you know, clients, us all, and especially if you're artists, you want to create something that, here we've got visually stunning images, but, you know, the top banner is a video, so we've got that level of movement, and then as we go down the page, you'll see things coming in, text will be fading on, we've got overlapping imagery, you know, and
it's really nice how that shadow moves as you move down.
Yeah.
It's a nice effect.
So we've done quite a lot of things like that where we've used even the banner images where we've had massive, full-scale images that maybe contain a building, and we've had some lovely shadows and reflections going across glass. It just creates a little bit more interest.
And I think this one is great because the subtlety is really there, isn't it? It's not. I mean, with the Weller brand as well, it's very clean. It's very kind of white, and letting the good photography speak for itself. But just using those little effects just gives it an extra shine.
I think that's right. I mean, obviously, when we talk about pitfalls, it is that overuse of movement. It can get a bit tiresome in times. And you want to use it in respect of the brand that you're working on. And as Liz said there, really nice, clean. So you don't want too much fast movement on there. And make sure the transitions are leading to something new and moving.
Sorry, we've got a beef attack.
Okay.
I'm gonna go back.
It's all happening.
Pardon us while we sort out what is causing the. No?
They're not messages that are coming through.
Hold on, just bear with us while we sort out.
We're going to have a little intermission.
Do you think you could work with the beep to make like a nice little intermission music?
Oh, here we go. Has it stopped? Now we're rapping now.
I don't have anything open.
You don't know. I feel it in my feet.
Was your email open?
No.
Okay. It looks like open. Are you sure?
Oh, nearly. We're ever so close. It's okay. We're doing all right for time. It's fine.
Oh, it sounds like they can't hear. Can you guys hear the beeps? They're done now.
Okay.
But I think they can't hear them. So maybe
Maybe it was just us. We can cope.
So, it's all right,
So we were just singing awkwardly.
As much as it was driving us crackers. Obviously, with anything to do with movement, find ways to make these reusable, so cut down the cost of expense, build things that you can use on other projects and stuff like that, really.
Yeah, I think this is a key situation where what we're doing is slightly different to, the web or the print web, where you might, live sites that you might only go to once or twice when you're looking for something, or if you're shopping, they're really trying to grab your attention.
Yeah.
Whereas with learning, you want people to, have those transitions to draw their attention, to create that impact, but you don't want it to become frustrating if they're returning to it. And also you don't want the messages that are being put through the learning to get lost in the kind of.
So you don't want
of it.
As it says there, Liz, I'll say it for you. So you don't want the users to get slowed down to the information, really. You've still got to have that balance somewhere along the line. So think about where that is used. These are, it's a shame we can't click on some of these, but this is how some have been used outside of here. Here we go. Got some cinemagraphs, everybody. Hopefully you can see them.
Now I need to transfer the screen. Hang on one sec.
I mean, they're so lovely, aren't they? When you can see, I mean, they really are lovely.
Just click.
Okay, sorry about that. So here you can see they're very subtle movements. So like the wind's blowing and the water moving here. A water or fire, I've seen quite a lot.
Popular,
they're quite popular, aren't they?
Yeah.
But just really subtle kind of things like that. I think they can really add a really nice visual effect.
And we've often used that one in the bottom corner, Liz, haven't we? Where we've created, especially when we've done stuff for things like M&S, Costa Coffee, where we've used that sort of effect of heat coming off a cup, warm cup of tea, and it's quite nice. Very subtle, but quite effective. Yeah, so the next one is bespoke illustrations. obviously with these are, it's to get away from using things like stock. Obviously, it needs
we're stuck on a slide. We're stuck on pitfalls somehow. Let's see. Thanks for pointing that out, guys. Can you close out of that and then we'll go back in?
Yeah.
And then that'll probably fix it.
That's why.
But actually, it didn't show the.
The screen's frozen.
I know we're investigating the frozen screen of death. We just had somebody come and join us. Is it frozen on there?
Yeah.
No,
We're just all frozen.
it's all right.
Adrian, entertain.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, the next, I can talk about this subject. Can we see any of this?
No, we're still on that. So there seems to be something wrong with that screen.
I'm going to close it and then I read it.
Okay.
If there's issues, I can switch to my browser. Or is my
Well, I mean, I can talk. Shall I talk over it anyway? Because we
Yeah.
can come back to it. So, what we're going to go into here is around this idea of bespoke illustrations. I mean, the big reason for creating anything like this is really get away from using what a lot of people do use, and we have to in this industry, is that level of using stock imagery. So to create something unique for the client, something that people have never ever seen before, which then creates something extra for the client, because then the client can take hold of this these designs.
So we still seem to be
Okay.
stuck for some
Okay,
reason.
let me
I'm
come
just
out
gonna.
the screen.
I'm gonna.
Or
Yeah.
switch. Do you want to switch to you presenting?
Yeah. Let's just go ahead and switch.
Okay.
Actually, that'll be more complicated. Do you want to quit screen sharing
Yeah.
and try going back in?
Right.
Sorry, guys. Thanks for bearing with. We should have this back in a second. If not, worst comes to worst, we will switch to my screen. But it'll just make it a bit.
I'll
more
start doing some drawings if worse comes to worse. So, as we said, it creates something new for the client to use.
The big one.
So they could potentially use it for things like campaigns. So that could be anything from screensavers to T-shirts to banners to posters, or in social media. So it really has added legs, and they can, some of these things that we've designed over the years have taken new forms of life when they've gone to certain companies where they've been adopted almost like a mascot in a way. So we're back in, everybody. Thank God. I mean, I don't know how long I could have spoken for there without looking at anything. Right, so here we go. Here we go, everybody. So can we see these?
Yes.
Here we are.
Sorry about that.
Celebrations. So we've got three distinct sort of set of images here. One that was obviously created for a film sort of convention, probably looks like Poland, and then we've got these really beautiful handcrafted illustrations for this Proud and Punch, and then this sort of hand-drawn sort of watercolor marker visual type effect that we've got used on this history of climate change. So you can see how, using bespoke illustrations, how quickly it changes something. Where we had the duotone that was used to change photographic images, here it's a mind, you can just open it up to anything. It's your imagination, basically. So we've got we've got five items here that show
Just
they're again
completely stylistically different, aren't they?
really different, vector based, some look like traditional hand-drawn illustrations, and there's some that are probably made within 3D as well. So it is that thing about moving away, so to create something new. But do think also, when we talk about illustrations, it's also looking at this aspect of incorporating, sometimes as we do here, 3D, which really combines quite a few things. We've got the animation aspect as well, and so it's worth looking at all of those. Here are some things that we've done in-house. You can see some of the pencil work that was created. This was for an Australian company called Burger Fuel, and they had graffiti all over their interior, their stores. So we mimic that, we mimic that in their e-learning. So there was that, real association for the company, and it went down really well. Here, mixture of illustrations for various clients. Some vector-based, some that have been drawn. Mostly, most of the things we ever do obviously are drawn on a computer, but somewhere along the line they start with pencil drawings. We still believe heavily in doing that, and obviously over the years, as you will, we build, we collect items. So here we've collected lots of items that we've then transposed onto other designs as well. So there is that feature that you can reuse some of these. And really great for anybody who loves animation. Once you get hold of something that's been hand crafted, you can really do some really lovely things with it. Obviously, pitfalls with all of these things is all around time, and these can be very time consuming to create, but in the long run, very worthwhile. It's all around utilizing your budgets properly in that respect. The other thing is you've got to make sure. I'm very fond of hiring illustrators. I really like their quirky sense of humor as well as their thought process. So I have a really good team of specialist illustrators. So you can look at obviously getting people in, freelancers as we do from time to time, but it's not easily replicable.
Yeah, everyone's got their own style, don't they, or a style that they prefer, or something that they're better at. And if you look at portfolios of different artists, you'll often see, you can really pick out quite quickly the type of thing that they do, and the style that they use. So it may be that fits particularly well with one brand that you're working with or not. So, but yeah, it tends to be very specific to that person and not easily kind of shared amongst a group of people.
You pulled up a good point there, actually. That thing about something being particular for a client.
Yeah.
And later on, we're going to show you how we use this device called Dropmark. So we collect things and show clients. So we develop a style or get the idea from the client, say, yes, we really love that, before actually doing anything. So, obviously, I'm sure you all do that out there. And have a look at this site for inspiration. OMG Posters, some great artists on there. Yeah. Ken Taylor's one of my favourites.
So we've got a few of the posters there, don't we?
Yeah.
But also video game design. Also got a bit of everywhere I look, I see duotone now. I can't get it out of my head. But yeah, also typography you've got there. Again, book covers. I think publishing tends to be quite on line with these trends, doesn't it? And kind of pick up on
you do find that. I mean, one of the big trends for next year in terms of illustration is that fantasy. That surrealistic aspect. You see that there with the use of, like, they've got quite a few animals in all these things. I love using birds and things like that, even within the sort of things that we do. So you can see that there within the typographic aspect and certainly the book covers.
Yeah, great. Okay, so the final trend that we're going to be talking about before we just wrap everything up is intersecting blocks. Again, this is something that's been around for a little while, and especially in terms of the transitions of how those work, but it's really kind of picking up this year in terms of a trend, combining with a few of those other things as well.
I was going to say being around the block now, Liz, but I thought,
But yeah, it kind of, the way that these overlap, it kind of doesn't create a kind of column layout, but it just gives you that nice sense of depth.
It creates that thing that we always try and want to do, that that editorial aspect. These things that you see here, when you think of print design,
that's really come through.
You start looking at people like David Carson, who did Reagan magazine. He did these layouts, in the late 80s, early 90s. So, we're getting round to getting that sort of structure on certainly on the web, and obviously there's a lot of things to take into account when doing these. The stuff that I'm showing you I think they're brilliant to look at.
Yeah.
Obviously you've got to take into account, I'm just looking at these, thinking,
learning? Yeah.
I'm not learning. I'm looking at things that are product based. So you've got to take that into account when certainly taking inspiration.
Definitely. So I think it can be all sorts of things that are interlaid. Mostly they're kind of key image blocks, but it can also be text, kind of videos, all sorts of different things. The Weller example that we looked at kind of had that effect of going through different blocks.
So you got coloured blocks going over imagery, you got text going over both, you got things going over video. It creates that foreground, midground, which adds to that level of movement, when we talk about parallax. So it creates that sort of, or mimics the level of having that 3D slight effect to it.
And the kind of depth and perspective, I won't go back into it.
No, that's right.
But some of these are video clips and some of them are static imagery, so it just gives a different depth to it as you go through. And here are some other examples that we've created as well. You can see, some of these are intersecting with the text there, or this one uses quite a lot of different imagery to get across, all the different things that are within that brand.
And obviously a little window's intersected that graphic there. Like I say, simplicity is the key. I mean, as much as that some of the things I've shown you they are beautiful, can be also very complicated, and they are products. So it's a different thing. We have to take some of the inspiration, but think of it in the context of certainly of learning. And obviously considerations with certain clients even now is that level of sort of bandwidths and loading times. And it can get a bit like anything, a bit repetitive if you keep seeing the same thing. So use it wisely.
Yeah, I think just, if it's like the menu or the first stage, isn't it? And then if you're returning to it constantly, you can kind of fade the effect down a bit. And
the big thing is usability.
Yeah.
And obviously, let's not forget accessibility. Yeah. Because as you can see there's a lot of stuff that is, static typography.
Yeah. So I think if you were thinking of someone who needed a tabbable screen, you'd have to be really careful about how that was designed in order to be able to do that. And again, there's another great link there for some inspiration, so Kelsey will share that with you as well. And here's just some more kind of our inspiration that we've looked at around, sometimes just using those intersecting blocks and sometimes having that parallax effect, so you get different, all those layers can move at different speeds, right? So you get a different effect as you move through
so
it.
you've got that movement, and what you see there, especially in print, is that aspect of split typography. So that's also a very big thing for the coming year.
Yeah, and I think we've got a bit of that in our LearnTech design.
We've got some of that in our LearnTech design, yes.
So I mean,
hopefully, we will see that. So we've used that technique ourselves. It's really nice, and you still got to have some structure around that, haven't you, Liz? Because obviously me, when I did it, A being left-handed and just thinking about how it might look.
Yeah, and then I pointed out that the legibility might not quite be right. People might not quite know the word that you were aiming for.
Left to right,
so,
top to bottom.
Does have a designer to check
I think it does. You need that. You need that inspiration, definitely.
Okay, so just to sum up then, these are kind of the 5 key things that we've been through. The bold colours, double exposure, movement transitions, bespoke illustration and intersecting blocks. And a lot of the examples that we looked at had some kind of combination of those, not necessarily looking at one thing in isolation, but could you use the duotone and have some intersecting blocks, or could you use the double exposure and then have a transition within that? And so
I think you could use them all.
Yeah, you could. Just have to be careful.
Subtly.
Yeah. Subtly.
But obviously with any sort of trend, I think we go on to the next. Is there another? With any sort of trends, you'll find this, and you can look at this on the web. And I think I might have included a link, but certainly Pantone release before the year starts. Release a set of colours, and you will be seeing these colours on your bedding, on your walls.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you choose to use them. And ultraviolet's one of the main ones they've got for next year. I think it comes with about 12, and these are really aimed at fashion originally, but they soak through to everything, so you'll find that you'll start seeing some of the colours, and maybe that's a challenge for us all this year, is to use some of these colours in the design. I think last year,
like millennial pink.
Yeah, well, I think last year was pink and flamingos.
Yeah.
Last year, and we managed to get one of them in our designs. I can't say I like it, but we managed to get it in there. So we try and have a little bit of fun with some of these things. But yeah, ultraviolet uses a lovely duotone and some negative space, which is perfect.
And then the final thing we just wanted to talk about is how we use our inspiration.
So we use a file system that some of you are probably aware of. It's called Dropmark. We've been using it for a few years now, and basically it's like a private Pinterest. We pay so much for each user a month, and we find it really useful. It's really good in terms of creating banks of images for mood boards for clients. So we do that, share it with the client. They're kept as live sites, so live video, live animation. So if you've got anything you want to capture and place in there and share with the client, I think this is a really good.
Because it's like a mood board, but it's actually interactive, isn't it? So you can actually have the animation launch, you can have videos launch and see.
Well, I think you can see there, it's still
scrolling. You can see how things work. So it's actually, you get a much more real sense of how it's going to work if you pick up on one of those techniques. And it's a really nice way of sharing internally, we find, between us, but also, with clients, and saying, what do you think of this idea or this idea, before you've gone too far down the path of having to design or create something, and sometimes, a pencil sketch isn't going to quite get over how it's all going to work. So these are great for kind of sharing those
things like movements and saying, what do you think of this if we were doing this style of animation or this style of photography? And what it does create, especially in companies, is that collaboration. It isn't just an art director or a graphic designer thinking of these things. I think everybody has a natural interest in the visual aspect. So, designers have got this. So all our designers, all our graphic artists, all contribute to this, and then we share it with people in sales and the like. Really good tool. I can't say anything else really about it, I suppose.
So that's just and I think the one thing is that if you've got these trends in your mind, whenever you spot something, you might not have a piece of work instantly that it's going to work for, but it's really nice to save it and say, I'd really like to use that technique for something, I'd really like to use that style for something, and then if the opportunity arises, you've got a nice repository where everything's all saved together.
You've got a catalogue, you've got a bank of images, which I think everybody needs inspiration, and you can actively contribute to that. So you can put your own things on there. That you might have a company that has offices worldwide, so you can actively all contribute. Takes it out of Pinterest and makes it private. If you do have a Pinterest account, you can put all your items in this one place.
Okay.
So I don't know. Is there any questions?
Yeah, we'll open up the floor to some questions. I've got two that I jotted down, but if there's any more that you guys have, I will happily direct those to our hosts. So the first one is from Ashley, and this was on the bespoke illustrations. She was wondering if you find it challenging to create bespoke illustrations in line with client branding restrictions. I said it probably depends on a case-by-case basis. I thought you might have some nice examples where you've overcome this. Or
when you're using bespoke illustrations, we tend to have some clients that do allow that level of flexibility with their brand. So you might stick to core colors. So say if we create some creatures, say if we did something for BP and it's a very limited palette, we might mute those colors down. We might create some creatures, but they fit in with their palette. But you can't inherently fit in with everything that somebody dictates in brand, because often they don't have anything about bespoke illustrations. They'll have an illustration style, or they may not, but a lot of our clients, when you show them things, they actually
get quite excited
about seeing something different, because after a while, anybody that works in a big corporate company will get bored of seeing the same things.
And I think if you can fit in, like the Burger Fuel one is maybe a good example of a way where they use
it already,
and they had quite a specific illustration style. But I wouldn't say ours is the same.
No, we mimicked
what they've done, and they've made that work for the course that we were creating. So we created characters in that style, which I don't think they had, and things like that. You know, so we took that as our basis, and then we knew that by aligning to the styles that they've used in their stores, it was going to kind of be on brand in that way. But we were creating it ourselves.
I think we're lucky. We have clients that are flexible. You know, we don't always go through the branding department, not on everything, because you would you'd be limited. You know, and people, you know, don't want to see reams and reams of white, yellow, green all the time, or your reds. I mean, I had it once with working with the Royal Mail. The people that work there, they didn't want to see red anymore.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've then got that real tug of war with the brand team who obviously want to keep that. So you have to develop something to go alongside it, really.
We have another question where somebody said, have you got any examples where you've incorporated 3D animation into bespoke illustrations?
Yes, we have. There you go. We have. We've used it on a couple of brands, and I can mention them, can't I? One for Telenor, where we developed a character that interacted with their, I'm going to say managing director, might not be, but we basically did a video that incorporated him and this 3D character, which worked really well. We've then developed some illustration for a company, for a bank, actually HSBC. We developed an illustration style that was bespoke. And we basically made the bespoke illustration then into 3D. So it was a 2D illustration, like an architectural style, and then it went from being plan view, so an overview of an area, to then actually the camera going into the area. So that's it. So this is something that we developed for Telenor. You know, invariably it uses a color, so it goes back to that thing we were saying. We kept it on brand by using that color, and then somewhere along that, might not be in this animation, he basically interacts with their managing director, and they were
they loved it.
Pleased with that.
And I think because it was particularly because it was a kind of code of conduct, ethics and compliance type course, they really liked that it didn't, like the character didn't represent any particular person, like in terms of diversity, you know, by using a character a little blue person outside of that didn't kind of take one stance or the other. So it was really good in terms of,
and it made it fun.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to be said about putting some fun into some of the courses that we create, you know. You tend to remember things more, don't you?
I think we have one more question, but if you guys have some more, you can still pop them in. We had a question on what software do you guys use for 3D modeling? We are looking at Modo, but it's kind of an open thing at the moment.
Open source.
From Darren,
Yeah, I mean, what we use is more of the traditional. So we use, 3ds Max, and we have some people that use Maya.
I think Adobe's doing a lot.
Yeah,
we do. Yeah,
it's like just come out not too long ago.
Yeah.
They have like a really good solution.
It's simple. It depends what I mean. We're talking. Adobe released thing like a character animator studio, but and Muse, I think, which works inside that arena. But when you're doing this, these characters are rigged in a way, and so we use specialist people.
Yeah.
So in this case, even though we do have 3D animators, we tend to use specialists because they'll be set up with rendering farms and things like that. So that's how we get around it. We outsource it.
Pro tip there, Darren, outsource it. All right, I think that's it for questions, and that takes us right on to exactly 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I hope everyone enjoyed it and got something out of it.
But I'll get some 3D stuff together and, you know, send it to him, links, because I know what he means. It's expensive software.
Yeah.
You know, that's why, you know, a lot of these teams you can't afford to have a £5,000 machine just sat there if you're not creating 3D, you know, regular. So I'll look into a cheaper version for him. Let him know. That's good. Anyway, bye from me. I think it's bye from Liz. What is it, Liz? Go on.
We didn't say that thing about inspiration.
Oh, yeah.
All around.
As we said before, inspiration
It's all around.
is all around. And on that note, Liz, take it from the top. I feel it in my fingers. I feel it in my toes. Come on, Liz.
No.
Anyway,
Thank
love is
you.
all around, everybody.